Yes, well, welcome everyone. And I am so excited to have this opportunity to work not only with Sandy, but then also just exciting and innovative women that are making a difference in our community. And one of those women happened to be Dr. Tara Waln-Lewellyn. I am so honored and privileged to know her personally, but then to have also had the opportunity to work alongside her for many, many years at Creighton University. So I will give just a brief bio on Dr. Waln-Lewellyn. And again, it's brief because she does so much. She is, in my opinion, a woman leader warrior.
Ooh,
Yes.
I love that.
Oh, wow.
Yes. Okay. So Tara has been, she has over 25 years of experience in higher education and social services. She started her career actually as a victim advocate at a domestic violence shelter, where she taught literacy, study skills, adult basic education, prep, GED, you name it. Tara has taken the time to really dive into research that really looks at working with underserved populations, folks that are marginalized on the higher ed level. But she has done some awesome work, not only with students, but individuals, again, from that shelter aspect, folks that have intellectual disabilities. Again, she is my leadership warrior, in my opinion.
So for our
Thank you
listeners,
for
we're
having
talking about CliftonStrengths through Gallup. And I have to tell you, Tara, every time I see the top 5 of somebody, I say, oh my gosh, these are so wonderful. What a combination. And just to give a little background for everyone, when you look at the Clifton, there are 34 strengths, but they put them into 4 themes. And the main themes that come out with Tara are strategic thinking and executing. So the intellection and then individualization is relationships. So it's just a beautiful mixture. And I can't wait to hear about which of the strengths most resonate with you. When you look at your top 5, Tara, what do you see as what resonates most with you in your daily life and leading?
You know, Sandy and Fallon, as I was thinking about that question, my first thought was input. Then I was like, no, maybe it's learner, because I really am a learner. I'm very curious. Then, because I'm both, I grab my book and to read through all 3 of my top 3. And I honestly think I I with my top 3, I think I use those pretty interchangeably.
Mhm.
And I don't know if that's accurate or not. Um, but that's kind of how I feel. But I think I always present myself as a learner first. And like with my interactions with people, um, and no matter the situation, is that learning together. I don't know everything. Other individuals don't know everything, but together, we're going to learn something new. It makes me kind of think of a friend I have, and I used to think this was terrible until I was married for 20 years. She said she and her husband together make one competent person. And I think that ties into it. We all come in and we have different strengths, but I will say overall, I think it is learner, because I hear something new and I just go with it. And Fallon may remember when a colleague of ours who's from Florida taught me about alligators and bang sticks. And I spent like 3 nights on the internet reading about where to find alligators, how to kill alligators, and what a bang stick was, and what they cost, and what kind of training you need. And that's just sort of how I felt. Sandy's laughing. She's like, no,
I'm
you're
looking
just a
because
nerd.
So tell me if this resonates with you. I have this little book I love that you're talking about the blending, and it says, it does a
Mhm.
statement blending the two. And as you're talking, I'm like, boy, your intellection with your learner. So I am a
Oh,
student of the world in which I live, and I'm a student of the world of the thoughts that live within me. I thought that was good.
Hmm. I
that
love
is good.
I love that. And if I can
Thank
just
you.
chime in a second here too, Sandy, I think with you, Tara, like with you mentoring, like Tara, she mentors folks, right? She mentors graduate or doctoral students that are doing the journey that she's currently finishing or that she's finished up. So she's mentoring those
Mhm.
students. She's mentoring undergrad students. And so I think that when you look at her top 5 strengths, that's why I say I think they really speak to who she is as an individual, but then also as that individual that wants to give back, that wants to learn, that wants to show folks who they are, like just to uplift them individually. So just wanted to add that in.
And, we're talking about Women's History Month, and part of it is we're trying to bridge, these interview questions with the leaders, the women leaders of today, with the women leaders of the past. You talk about mentorship. I know, Fallon, you had a question about mentorship that we want to dig a little deeper.
Yeah. So again, as Sandy said, we are celebrating Women Histories Month. So as we celebrate Women Histories Month, how do you approach mentorship, Tara, particularly in fostering the development and empowerment of women in your field of research in higher ed and leadership?
So I think my mentoring approach stems back to one of probably my first, more or less formal mentor, who actually was a man. So I already flunked the test for, for this question. But I, in a kind of a strange twist of events, about the time, and literally within like 10 days, 2 weeks, that I was preparing for my first official formal mentorship, he passed away.
Oh my gosh.
And it it hit me in a way that other deaths have not. I've been told, when you lose your mentor, it hits differently. Um, and it does. And so as I was thinking, okay, how do I honor this remarkable man? And I have this opportunity to mentor this individual. And it wasn't really, his approach was not extravagant. Um, it was just we worked together. He got to know me. He got to know my background, my interests. And as I decided to move on and to try graduate school, he was one of my references. And um, when I changed job positions again, reference and this and that. And I always think back to one of our key interactions where I had just found out I was accepted to grad school. It was a very, very big deal for me. And so I told him, and he goes, okay, you're smart enough for grad school. You're smart enough for your doctorate, but you got to watch your mouth. And he goes, you got to learn to jump through other people's hoops and, choose your battles. And it's yes, ma'am, no, ma'am, yes, sir, no, sir. And Fallon's known me for years, and she's like, yeah. And that is the response for people who have known me for a long time. They're like, okay, yeah, Dr. Jones knew you. He knew you. And that's what I took away, is that he knew me. So the best service that I could do as a mentor or even a supervisor, a colleague, whatever role I play, is get to know that person that I'm working with.
So during Women's History Month, as you know, we recognize the achievements of women who broke barriers. How do you envision using your strengths to continue breaking barriers? It's a good question.
It is a very good question. And this is the one that I struggled with. And I have a couple answers, and I don't, not that this is, like, uh, you're wrong or you're right test. I I think one thing that I've learned, and one thing that I observed is, in talking about mentors, I've also always observed just the women who came before me, the generation or two before me. And as I entered my career, I would watch
Mhm.
and just watch. And there were a lot of cautionary tales, I think, that didn't, you know, generations before us, they had to give up a lot of themselves as women to
Mhm.
fit in. Um, and with that, sometimes those mentorship opportunities weren't there. There was more of that. Um, I had to sacrifice X to get here, so you will too. I'm hoping that that's one thing that I've been as myself trying to correct, where yeah, I've had to go through some things to get all of us together where we need to be. But I can't hold it against someone who's younger than me who
Right.
didn't experience it. And I had a training years ago, several years ago, where a group of us women, Gen X and older, were talking about being sexually harassed at work. And this younger lady at that time, she would have been like in her early 20s, and she couldn't believe it as we're telling these stories.
Mhm.
And she's like, I can't believe you guys lived through that. Like, that does not happen now. And we're like, you're welcome. You know, you're welcome, because it did. And but I'm glad you haven't had to experience it.
Somebody
And
has to pave
so,
the way for the next, right?
right, right. And so I think, again, it's just using my strengths. I think it just goes back to I try to model behavior that has worked for me, which does go back to my strengths, the questions, the learning, the getting to know people on that individual basis, the owning what you say you're going to do. And I think too, deep down, it's that be true to yourself, and you set what you define as what is successful. You
Right.
set your own goals. You know what your boundaries are. And so I think one of the best ways that I can pave the way is by practicing that before you could get in. And anyway, so I went to get the door one day, and one of my clients came in, and there was something going on with her feet. She said her feet hurt, they were sore, and it was cold weather. I can't remember if anymore if it had snowed or not, but she was complaining about her feet, and she was almost in tears. And I looked down, and she was wearing slippers. And I stood there. She had been with us for about 2 weeks. She had gone out on job interviews. She had gone to court. Um, and she had worn these slippers because that's what she had. They had shoes. None of us paid enough attention to realize, hey, this poor woman is walking around in spurs for 2 weeks. So I got her some shoes, and then she cried because she had a pair of shoes. And
She
again,
cried
the
happy,
ownership was,
right?
she cried happy.
Okay.
Yeah. So because I was just like, would you like some shoes? And I mean, her slippers are wet. So what are you going to do? Yeah, I want dry shoes. But I think what that taught me was that it's okay to sit back and just observe and um, absorb.
Mhm.
I almost said absolve, and I'm like, no, wrong word. Um, and that's not always encouraged
Yeah.
in any field where we want, the people who are the rapid thinkers, whether or not right, and whether or not they're right in their assessment or not, those are the ones that we tend to praise. And so what I learned there was just really to sit back and pay attention and look at the whole picture, and not only what is being said, but what isn't being said, what's being shared, but also what isn't being shared. And so I think that's something that I have carried with me throughout my career.
So we've been talking about your past and women currently. Who in the golden question, which is my favorite question to ask, just because hearing about a woman in the past that inspires you today, is there someone that resonates with you that you can share with us?
Ella Baker,
Nice.
and she was a civil rights activist, and wherever the civil rights movement was going from the 40s until the day she passed away, she was there. And a lot of people don't know about her, or they might know her name. But what I she's one of those people when you go like, I want to be like you when I grow up. She's who I want to be when I grow up. And what I appreciate about her is she was so reality based. And so she knew she was dealing with a racist structure, a racist culture, a racist country, but she also knew she was a woman. So within that, then she had to deal with the men as well. And she was a realist in the sense of like, okay, this is how it is. And there's a pretty famous comment that she made about, the tribe moves on and it continues to grow. And she had that understanding of this is a generational push. And so I'm not going to hold these restrictions to this younger generation. Instead, I'll facilitate. And she got funding, and she'd hold the first meeting, I think, of the SNCC, and she listened. But she was very much about that group leadership.
Right.
And she was she was not into that charismatic leadership, that the movement is formed around the identity of an individual. And that really speaks to me because I run away from charisma. To me, that can be a very negative trait. So even if someone is using it positively, I've had a lot of negative experience with it. But I think that was just with her, she just showed up and she did it.
That's awesome.
And it was just, I did what needed to be done. And that resonates with me, because no matter where I land, be it education wise, with my family, professionally, what I assess the situation, whatever needs to be done, I do it. So, and a lot of times I don't even think about it. You just fill that role. So yeah.
Gosh, that's
And
great
that's why I
info.
call you my leadership warrior, Tara. You just do it. You do it.
Well, but so did Ella, right? And now, like, people are like,
That's why we
who?
celebrate Women's
Um,
History Month, those that came before us.
yeah,
So thank you so much, Tara. This was wonderful. I loved hearing your stories, celebrating women in the past, and inspiring those today, right? Through the mentorship
yeah.
and through all the other touches that we have out there, and leading with our strengths. Oh.
Yes, yes. Thank you so much, Tara. We appreciate you. We appreciate all you do for not only the women in your community, but those that have not yet touched you.
Well, thank you. And thank you both for having me. And I apologize. I get to talking and I go long.
It's all
So
good. It's all great input. We love it. Thank you.
thank you.